Hey. Hey. Can you hear me? Come on. We have to go. Almost there. They found his car. They never found him. And the men who ran him off that road, they went home, poured themselves a drink, and assumed the problem was solved. They assumed wrong. Marcus Reed didn't just run a company. He was the company. Reed Dynamics wasn't built in a boardroom, it started in a cramped studio apartment in Atlanta. 2 monitors, 1 folding table, and a vision that everyone around him called reckless. 12 years later, Reed Dynamics operated in 9 states, held 4 federal contracts, and had made Marcus the kind of name that made older men in expensive suits deeply uncomfortable. A black billionaire who hadn't inherited a single dollar of it. That made him powerful. It also made him a target. The threats didn't start loud. They never do. First it was an anonymous tip to a financial regulator, nothing that stuck, but enough to slow things down. Then a key acquisition fell apart 2 days before signing. Then a source inside his own company leaked a private strategy memo to a competitor. Marcus noticed all of it. He said nothing. You don't fight shadows by swinging at them, he told his head of security once. You turn on the lights. But someone out there had stopped playing games. Someone had decided that Marcus Reed needed to disappear, not from the headlines, from the earth. The rain came sideways that night, the kind that makes the road look like black glass. Marcus had driven himself home from a meeting that left a bad taste in his mouth. A potential merger 18 months in the making had collapsed without warning. The other CEO, a man who'd been shaking Marcus's hand for a year and a half, couldn't hold eye contact at the end, kept glancing at the door like he was waiting to be dismissed. That wasn't a business decision, Marcus thought as he merged onto the highway. Someone told him to walk away. His phone lit up. A known number. He let it ring. It rang again, then again. He hit the Bluetooth. Yeah. Silence, then a voice, flattened, distorted, like it was being run through a filter. You should have taken the buyout when it was still on the table. The line dropped. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. Not shaking, still, the way hands go still when the brain shifts into a different gear entirely. Then the headlights appeared in his mirror, coming too fast. Way too fast. The black SUV closed the distance in under 4 seconds and hit him from behind like it meant it. Marcus's car lurched forward, fishtailing across 2 lanes. He corrected, barely, but before he could breathe, the SUV hit him again, harder, to the left this time. Not an accident. He floored it. The engine screamed, but the road curved ahead, rain-slicked and unforgiving, and the SUV was already coming around his passenger side. Metal shrieking against metal, and then the guardrail appeared in his headlights for exactly 1 second before he went through it. The drop was steep. The world stopped making sense. A gasp, then dark, then nothing. They found the wreck 3 hours later. 6 officers, 2 paramedics, 1 fire crew. They stood in the rain and stared at what was left of the car, crumpled against a cluster of pines at the bottom of a ravine, and said very little. Nobody walked away from this, one of them said. They searched for 2 hours, found nobody, no trail. The storm had erased everything. By morning, the story was on every screen in the country, Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Dynamics, missing after catastrophic crash. Presumed dead, Deep in the woods, half a mile from where anyone thought to look, Marcus Reed was not dead. He was close, but not there yet. He lay face down in wet leaves, thrown clear during the roll, one arm bent wrong, a gash across his forehead painting his face dark. His breathing was shallow and uneven, present, but barely. His phone was gone. His shoes were gone. He didn't know his name. He didn't know anything. Sidney Cole wasn't looking for him. She was 26, up before sunrise like always, moving through the woods she'd walked since she was a kid. She carried a woven bag for herbs, chicory, yarrow, whatever the morning offered. It was how she supplemented her income: farmer's market on Saturdays, a few regular buyers online. Nothing glamorous, but it kept the lights on in the one-bedroom house her grandmother had left her. She almost missed him. A shape, wrong color against the leaves. She stopped, pushed a branch aside, and then she was on her knees before she'd made a conscious decision to move. "Hey." Her hand on his back. "Hey, can you hear me?" His chest moved, just barely. Sydney looked up. Trees in every direction. No trail, no road, no signal on her phone. She looked back down at the man, large, badly hurt, completely unconscious. She had two choices. Leave and call for help, which meant he might not be alive when help arrived, or get him out herself, right now, with no help at all. She grabbed him under the arms and started pulling. It took 40 minutes to get him to her house. She stopped 3 times. Her shoulders burned. Her knees were soaked through. She didn't stop a 4th time. The first night, she didn't sleep. She cleaned the wound on his forehead, deep enough that she held her breath while she worked. She checked his breathing every 20 minutes. She pressed cool cloths to the bruising that spread across his ribs and shoulder. He didn't wake up, not that night, not the next morning. By the second evening, she sat in the chair beside the bed and let herself ask the question she'd been pushing away: what if he doesn't make it? She didn't have an answer, so she went back to work. On the 3rd morning, his fingers moved. She was across the room when it happened. She crossed it in 4 steps. "Hey." She leaned close. "Can you hear me?" His eyes opened, unfocused at first, scanning the ceiling like he was trying to identify a foreign country. Then they found her face, and something sharpened. Awareness without context. He tried to sit up. Pain knocked him back down. "Easy." She put a hand on his chest, steady, not forceful. "You're hurt. Don't push it." He looked at her like he was trying to figure out how she fit into a story he couldn't remember starting. "Where am I?" His voice was wrecked, dry and low. "My house. I found you in the woods." A pause. His brow pulled together. "The woods." "Yeah." Another pause, longer, the kind that has something heavy inside it. "What happened to me?" Sydney chose her words carefully. "I was hoping you'd know." He stared at the ceiling. You could watch him searching, really searching, like flipping through pages that weren't there. His expression shifted from confusion to something that looked like quiet panic, and then just as quickly went still. "I don't know," he said. "Your name?" Silence. "I don't know that either." Sydney exhaled slowly through her nose. "Okay." She'd dealt with hard things before. This was just a different kind of hard. "Then we'll call you something until you do." She studied his face. "Eli." "You look like an Eli to me." He said it quietly, testing the weight of it. "Eli. It means something," she said. "Devoted. Uplifted." He didn't smile, but something in his expression shifted, just slightly, like the name landed somewhere it wasn't supposed to reach. "All right," he said. "Eli." He healed slowly, then all at once. The first week, he could barely sit up without help. By the second, he was walking to the window on his own. By the third, he was asking what needed to be done and doing it without being told. Sydney watched him reorganize her kitchen in 20 minutes and said nothing. She watched him fix the gate latch she'd been meaning to repair for 8 months. She watched him sit at her table one morning looking at her bundled herbs and then say, completely unprompted, "You should be packaging these by use case, not by plant. People buy solutions, not ingredients." She set her coffee down. And how exactly do you know that? He looked at his own hands like the answer might be there. I don't know. It just seems obvious. Whoever Eli had been before, he hadn't been ordinary. That much was clear within the first month. Life settled into a shape, simple and quiet, but solid. They went to the Saturday market together. Eli carried the heavier bags without asking. He started talking to customers, carefully at first, then with a natural ease that made people stop and stay longer at Sydney's stall. Sales improved, then improved again. You're doing it on purpose, she accused him one evening. Doing what? Making people feel like they've already decided to buy before they even touch anything. He shrugged. I just listen to what they actually want and point them at it. She shook her head slowly. That's not a skill you pick up. That's something you've been doing for years. He didn't answer. But later that night, on the porch, he sat with his hands around a cup of tea and stared out at the dark tree line with the expression he got when he was reaching for something just past the edge of his mind. You ever feel like you're standing in the doorway of a house you used to live in? He asked. But you can't go in? Sydney looked at him. No. But I've felt locked out of things I should have had. He turned. What happened? She was quiet for a moment. My mom got sick when I was 19. I quit school to take care of her. By the time she was gone, the life I'd planned for was gone too. And I had to build a different one. Eli was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry. Don't be. I like what I built. Something in his face went soft in a way it rarely did. So do I, he said. And he meant this, right here. This quiet, careful life they'd stumbled into together. She felt it. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. 6 months in, a black sedan drove past them on their walk home from market. Slowly, too slowly. Eli's eyes tracked it without thinking. His body shifted, barely noticeable, but Sydney felt it. You know that car? No. His voice had gone flat. Just feels wrong. Inside the car, a man named Grant, a private investigator contracted 6 months ago by Reed Dynamics Board, stared at the man walking down the dirt road and felt his breath leave his body. He'd spent half a year following dead ends. And here was Marcus Reed, carrying grocery bags, walking next to a woman he'd never seen in any file. Grant drove to the end of the road, pulled over, and made a call. I found him. That night, Eli was quieter than usual. Sydney noticed but didn't press. She'd learned when to ask and when to let silence do its work. After dinner, he stood at the window for a long time. Something's coming, he said. Sydney looked up from the book in her lap. What kind of something? I don't know. He turned from the window. I just know I've been feeling like borrowed time for a while now. And today it felt shorter. She held his gaze. Whatever it is, we figure it out together. He nodded slowly, but his eyes never fully left the window. The next morning came clear and cold. Sydney heard the engines before she saw anything, not one, multiple, controlled and synchronized in a way that made her chest tighten before she understood why. She stepped onto the porch. 7 black SUVs rolled down the dirt road in formation and stopped in front of her house. Eli came out behind her. She heard him go still. Doors opened. Men in dark suits stepped out, not aggressive, but precise, scanning, positioned. Then the rear door of the second vehicle opened, and a woman stepped out. 60s, elegant, gray-locked hair, dressed simply but carrying herself like someone who had commanded rooms her entire life. She looked at Eli and stopped breathing. Marcus. The name hit the air differently than any other sound. Not loud, but final. Eli's face hardened. You have the wrong person. The woman took one step forward. Her voice cracked at the edges. "Baby, I know your face. I know it." From the third SUV, a man emerged, 60s, also, broader. He walked like someone who'd learned to hold everything inside and had run out of places to put it. "Your name is Marcus Reed," he said, firm but not harsh. "You're my son." Sydney's hand found the porch railing. "Son." Eli shook his head. "I don't." He stopped, pressed a hand to his temple. Something flickered across his face, not recognition exactly, more like the sensation of recognition without the content. Like hearing a song you know but can't name. One of the suited men approached and held out a tablet. A photo. Eli, clean-cut, tailored suit, standing in front of a glass building with the name Reed Dynamics behind him. Beneath it, a headline from 6 months ago, * Marcus Reed, billionaire CEO, missing after fatal crash. Presumed dead, *. Eli stared at his own face, then at the building, then at his hands. "This isn't possible," he said. But he didn't say it like a man who didn't believe it. He said it like a man who already did and wasn't ready. Sydney looked at him. 6 months of mornings. 6 months of the market and the porch and the tea going cold between them. 6 months of building something she hadn't planned for. And now she understood why he always knew things he shouldn't. Why people naturally deferred to him. Why he'd reorganized her stall in a week and tripled her sales in a month. He hadn't been hiding anything. He'd simply lost it, and now it was back. The older woman stepped closer to Eli, to Marcus, and her voice dropped to something private. "Come home. Please. We thought you were gone." He turned to Sydney, and she saw it, the fracture. One half of him already reaching back toward a life he couldn't remember but clearly belonged to. The other half planted here, on this porch, in this quiet world they'd built without asking for it. "Sydney, go." Her voice was steady. She wouldn't let it be anything else. "If that's your family, you need to know the truth. You deserve to know. I don't want to just." "Eli." She said the name deliberately, their name for him, the one she'd chosen. She let it sit between them for a second. "Go." He looked at her for a long moment, and then he walked toward the SUVs. She stayed on the porch and watched until the last one disappeared down the road, and the dust settled, and the silence came back, the same silence that had been there before him, but it felt completely different now. The city was a different species. Marcus stood in the lobby of Reed Dynamics on his third day back and felt like a man wearing his own face as a costume. People moved around him, assistants, executives, heads of departments, and they all looked at him with the same thing in their eyes: relief, expectation, certainty that he was going to be exactly who they needed him to be. He wasn't sure he was. His parents moved carefully around him those first days, showed him videos, photos, press coverage. A man who had built something from nothing and dared the world to stop him. He watched that man like a stranger at first, but the building had its own memory. His body knew the elevator button before his mind did, knew which hallway led where, knew which conference room ran cold. On day 4, he walked into a strategy session he hadn't been briefed on, listened for 8 minutes, and then interrupted a senior VP mid-sentence. That structure doesn't protect us on the back end. If they exit after phase 2, we absorb the entire loss. The room went quiet. Then the CFO said quietly, "He's right." Marcus hadn't thought about it. He'd just known. The old him was still in there, coming back in pieces. The investigation had never stopped. Now it accelerated. 2 names surfaced, rival executives, both of whom had been positioned to lose significantly if Marcus's latest acquisition finalized. They had hired outside contractors, planned the route, the timing, the impact. They'd accounted for everything except him surviving. Except for a woman walking through the woods at the right moment. When the lead investigator finished the briefing, Marcus sat in his chair and looked out the window at the skyline. They built the whole plan on one assumption, he said. That I was alone out there. He wasn't thinking about the crash. He was thinking about Sydney. He called her that night. She answered on the third ring. "You okay?" was the first thing she said. Something about that made his chest ache. "Yeah." A pause. "Are you?" A beat of silence. "I'm figuring it out." "I want you to come here," he said. "Not to stay, not to change anything. Just, I want you to see it. I want you to meet my parents. I need you to know that what happened between us wasn't something I'm leaving behind." Another pause, longer. "Okay," she said. She arrived on a Tuesday. She stepped out of the car and stood in front of the Reed Dynamics building and just looked at it for a moment, the glass and steel and height of it, the statement it made without saying a word. Marcus came out the front entrance and walked straight to her. No pause, no hesitation. "You came," he said. "You asked like it mattered." It did. She studied him carefully. "You look different." "I am different." Then, quieter, but not in the ways that matter. She held his gaze for a long moment, deciding something. Then she nodded, and they walked inside together. The arrests came 2 weeks later, both executives, their contractors, the full chain. Marcus stood in his office the evening after the news broke, looking out at the city lights. Sydney sat in the chair across from his desk, watching him. "How does it feel?" she asked. He thought about it honestly. Like closing a chapter one didn't get to finish reading. He turned from the window. "But the book's not done." She tilted her head. "What's the next chapter?" He crossed the room, sat on the edge of the desk across from her. "I've been thinking about something. The whole time I was Eli, I watched you work. Every day you were building something real with almost nothing. You had more instinct in that market stall than half the executives in this building." "Flattery," she said. "Capital," he replied. "I want to back your brand properly. Whatever you want to build. The wellness line, the community element, all of it, with real resources behind it." She was quiet. "And if I say no?" "Then you say no, and I respect it. And if I say yes?" "Then you build it your way. I just open the doors." She looked at him for a long time. "I want it to be mine. Not yours that you gifted me. It will be. I want that in writing." He smiled, the real one, the one that didn't show up in meetings. Done. 8 months later, Sydney's brand had a wait list. She'd named it yarrow, the first herb she'd been looking for the morning she found him. She stayed in the city for longer stretches, still kept the house in the woods, still went back when she needed to breathe. Marcus bought the property next door to the cottage and cleared it but never built on it. Just left it wild. "Why?" she asked him once. "Because some things shouldn't be developed," he said. "They should just be left alone to be what they are." She understood he wasn't talking about land. The night he proposed, there were no cameras. They were on the porch of the cottage, the same porch, the same trees, the same quiet that had held them both when they had no names for what they were to each other. "I've lived 2 versions of my life," Marcus said. He wasn't performing it. He was just telling the truth. "One where I had everything and couldn't see what was missing. And one where I had nothing and somehow found the only thing that actually mattered." Sydney's hands were still in her lap. She was very still. "You found me when I didn't know who I was," he continued. "You didn't need me to be anything. You just kept me alive and let me figure out the rest." He reached into his jacket pocket and dropped to one knee on the worn wooden boards they'd stood on 100 quiet evenings. "I don't want to build another version of my life that doesn't have you in it." He opened the box. "Marry me." Not because of what I have, because of who I am when I'm with you. Sydney looked at the ring for exactly 1 second. Then she looked at him. You almost died in my woods, she said. I know. I dragged you through mud for 40 minutes. I know. And you couldn't even tell me your name. I know. She smiled, slow, real. Yeah, she said. Okay. Yes. At the wedding, 2 worlds sat in the same room. Board members and farmers market vendors, executives and neighbors who'd bought lavender bundles on Saturday mornings. His parents, who cried early and didn't stop. Her cousin, who drove 6 hours and arrived an hour late and nobody minded. When Sydney walked down the aisle, she wore something simple, her grandmother's earrings, her own hands steady. Marcus watched her come toward him and felt, for the second time in his life, like a man being pulled back from the deep. They told the story 1,000 different ways over the years, the billionaire who survived, the empire rebuilt, the men who planned a murder and lost anyway. But the real story, the one that lasted, was simpler than all of that. A man lost his entire identity and survived because a stranger chose not to walk away. A woman who had almost nothing gave everything anyway, without asking what it was worth. And somewhere in the middle of all that loss and all that quiet, 2 people found out exactly who they were, even the ones who already knew their names. The most dangerous thing those men did wasn't putting him in the woods. It was leaving him somewhere he could become someone better.